Welcome to That's Church. My sister Emmy and I are on a mission to open our hearts and minds by attending different churches here in Utah. We're talking to the beautiful people that make their church a community.
How do you feel your relationship with God has changed since being true to yourself, or has it?
That is an interesting question. I don't know if I could say since becoming true to myself, my spiritual journey is just constantly changing and evolving. I went from super active LDS in the thick of everything to a very staunch atheist. And then I actually started going to Community of Christ because I wanted to find commonality with my wife, who's still in the LDS faith. And we were watching The Chosen together. And I thought, okay, this is a Jesus I can get behind, a Jesus of love and compassion. And I may not believe Jesus is real, but if I can find somewhere that teaches these principles, then I will be good. And so I started going to Community of Christ. Since going to Community of Christ, I went from a pretty staunch atheist to a spiritualist. And I don't know if that is the influence of Community of Christ or being more true to myself. Probably a little bit of both. I know at the beginning stages of Community of Christ, when I started coming to terms with my gender dysphoria and seeing the possibilities moving forward and the choices branching out in front of me, one thing that caused me a lot of pain was, why would God make me so conflicted so that I would just always live my life in this turmoil? And it was actually the pastor at the time who gave me some great insight on that I don't know if I want to share. It was really personal and it was really life-changing and life-saving, but it helped me open up my beliefs to the possibility of a God in general. So now I'm more spiritualist. I believe that where there is love being taught and where you can feel peace, then you are in the right place. God communicates with everybody differently. That's why there are so many religions. God needs us to find God on our own terms. And God has put themselves out there for everybody to find in whether they're analytical or whether they're super by the book and this is the process you follow or whatever. And I feel like I've lost my train of thought, but long story short, Christ teaches Jesus, and the Jesus they teach is an accepting, loving Jesus. I don't know if Jesus is the guy that existed, but I can get on board with the teachings of Jesus the way Community of Christ puts them out.
Love that.
Yeah, I'm like speechless because I just love that so much. I love the that God, we're all able to find God, and through whatever religion fits best with our lives. That is just like, it's like exactly what we're trying to do with this podcast. I feel like that needs to be the theme now. You're the mascot. And what a beautiful journey. And I'm glad you kept that personal message for yourself, because there are some things that are just so special that, it's so personal. And I'm so glad that pastor said that to you in whatever form it was. And I also am just impressed with your honesty, because I think a lot of people, and this might also be a Mormon thing, is that we love the story of like, I was struggling in this trial, but now I'm here and I'm on top of the mountain and I'm great. And my spirituality is just like this. And I'm perfectly happy with that, because there's a lot of growth that happens when you go. I just realized I did a motion and some people listening might not know, but I'm moving my hand up and down, y'all. Because it is a roller coaster. And I think there's so much to be learned on the downward spirals, just as much as the upward trek, so to speak. But yeah, so I love that you were so honest, and I just think there's so much value in talking about our spirituality in an honest way.
Yeah, for sure. Otherwise, what good is it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I think there's so much grace that should be given as well in like where you're at in your journey. Like you were a staunch atheist at one point, and now, and not that that's bad or wrong or anything, but just you just don't know where a person is and where they're going to end up and what they're going through, and you don't know their past, you don't know their future, and you don't know what's going on right now in their life either. I try really hard in like teaching at church because I think Ashley's exactly right that a lot of times people will share their story when it's perfected or when it feels like you're above it. And perfect isn't the right word because it's never there, but when you're above the trial or or the struggle or whatever. And so I try to make it a point when I'm teaching or talking to my kids or anyone that I'm honest about my current struggle, and that like, hey, I'm not perfect and I'm struggling in whatever it is I'm struggling in that moment because I think that's how people can relate. And I think when we look at it from a past perspective or tell it from a past perspective, then people think, oh, wow, well, she's so strong because she got through this and I'm weak because I'm struggling right now. No, I was struggling then too, or I am struggling right now too. And so I think that's something that is so important that we stand where we're at in the moment, so anyway, but I love to hear your story and hear the path that you, and I'm excited to see where your path takes you in the future as well. I think
Me too. It's a journey.
it is. It's a journey, and I love your story. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. So Brittany mentioned a little bit that she has not always felt safe as a female pastor here in Utah. How have you felt as a trans woman? Have you felt safe here for the most part? And do you have any advice for trans youth?
Oh my goodness. So safety in Utah, I can acknowledge that Utah is not one of the most dangerous places for trans people, which is amazing and great. I'm grateful for that.
Good.
I don't really feel like I'm unsafe, but that comes with the caveat that I don't put myself in situations where I think I'll be unsafe, like restrooms. I do not use the restrooms in public at all because I don't want to have the choice of do I want to get yelled at or possibly assaulted. So I don't. And I don't know how safe it would be. I can't speak to that. I also haven't been to Southern Utah, where maybe the political climate's a little bit different than where I am right now.
Sure.
So I don't know. I know downtown Salt Lake feels really nice and safe. Usually when I go there, it's a pretty queer place and it's very affirming and amazing. I know that legislatively, Utah is not a safe place for trans people. There's a lot going on legislatively that is detrimental to being trans. So there's that safety. So overall, it's a gray area. Like I said, in my experience, I haven't been beat up. I get stared at a lot. Sometimes that's not fun. Sometimes I will stop presenting feminine and have a masculine day just because I'm tired of being the focus of attention everywhere I go. It's so annoying. But, and it's nice to just blend in and be a person and not have my transness be who I am. As far as advice for the kids, it's a tricky environment out there right now. It's really hard to transition. It might even be hard to come out for some of you. If you do not feel safe to come out, don't come out if it is not safe for you. If you are in the closet, you are still valid. You are still loved. You are still seen by other people that love you. Even if you haven't found your people yet, you are and will be loved. If you need support, and you don't know anybody you can talk to in person, I would say go to thetrevorproject.org. It is a nonprofit that is available for support for anybody that is queer, not just the trans kids. And I would recommend that very highly. If you're out, but you're unable to transition medically for whatever reasons, or transitions just not happening as fast as you want it to, just rock what you got. Fake it till you make it. That confidence is beautiful, and just have that confidence. And if you're not feeling the confidence, put your earbuds in, just rock your favorite music, hold your head up high. You got this.
You guys can't see it, but I'm cutting onions over here. You can't see it though. Wait, we're videoing. Dang it. Got Misty a few times in there. There's onions in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is beautiful. And what a great message to send to trans youth and all youth. And Trevor Project is amazing. We've sent our tithing money to Trevor Project a few times. So thank you so much for
good source. Yeah.
And I was going to have you share this at the end, but I think sometimes people don't make it to the end, and I want them to have this resource. You have a blog that you have created, right? That with your history or with your story, and you continue to keep that blog up. I'm excited to look at it. You recently told me about it. I haven't looked at it yet, but do you mind sharing what that blog is?
Oh yeah. So trigger warning on the blog if you do want to look at it. I kind of intended it just for like family and friends, but as I said, with the spiritual journey, the personal journey, it's all important to share, I think. So I do get pretty, I don't know, open. I get very open in that, and I talk about all kinds of things. So just view it with caution if you want to.
I'm so excited. I have so much homework to do after this.
I just looked it up. It's benorjen.blogspot.com.
Okay. Yeah, I just found it too. And I think it's so important to be genuine and open and real and our true selves. And I think it could help a lot of people. So thank you so much for sharing that and letting us know about it.
So if I may, I want to say here that Jen is transitioning as an adult and keeping a very close track on that with the blog. So it isn't for kids. There is very, very raw adult material. And honestly, for me, it's been very fascinating to learn. I've even asked Jen some questions about it. It is very honest. As I said, it can trigger suicide warnings. And Jen does reference those triggers usually at the first of the posts. But I do think you'll find it to be one of the most intense views inside what Jen's going through from someone doing and writing this firsthand.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm excited to read. Yeah.
I do have suicide triggers as appropriate. I don't always necessarily talk about the physical triggers. I try not to be super crass with them, but I want them to be out there as it's a part of the reality.
Sure.
For sure.
So if you're an adult and you're interested in learning more about Jen's story and maybe receiving some of that support and information, then definitely visit her blog. And if you're a child, talk to your parents. And I liked what you said about if it's not safe for you to come out, don't come out. That is so, I've never really thought about that. I mean, I think a lot of times we just encourage people to come out. I think it is important to find a safe adult or a safe person to come out to and make sure that it is a safe environment and a safe person. I really am so glad that you said that. That has never been on my radar for some reason. So I think that's important to note. And I think it's true that it isn't always safe. I have a neighbor that I met recently. Actually, she lives pretty kind of far from me, but we do like a neighborhood block party every summer. And she was just walking by our party, and I said, "Stop and eat," and invited her to stay. And she was telling me what she does for a living, and she's a she's a mental health worker, and she said, I now work with only adults because when I started, I worked with youth, and it was so hard because she said, here in Utah, you can't imagine how many youth are on the streets because they've come out to their parents and been rejected and kicked out of their own homes. And so they're homeless because they came out to their parents. And so she was in charge of kind of helping and supporting them and getting them into housing and things like that. But I was just shocked. I was blown away that that's even a thing at all. I really was very naive to that fact. So it's it is a real thing. And I hope our listeners or anyone listening that is struggling with coming out, that they do have a safe place or a safe person that they can talk to. But like you said, it's not always the case. So it's just so sad. Okay. Back to joy. Our next question, what things give you the most joy now and gave you the most joy before your transition?
That is another thing that I had to reflect on. So before my transition, I did a lot of distractions so that I would not have to pay attention to the little scratching at the back of my skull that told me something was wrong. So I got into things like Dungeons and Dragons. I loved creating content for Dungeons and Dragons. I have so many characters that I will never play because I just had to keep my brain occupied. Board games, but like super advanced board games you guys probably never heard of. I actually created a few board games, painting miniatures with lots of little detail for said board games, D&D, Warhammer, anything to keep my mind occupied. After the transition or during, I'm still in transition. I'm still in that pupil phase, but I still like D&D and board games, but I find now that I can be authentic and I don't feel like I'm masking anything. I'm able to develop better relationships with people, my kids, and I'm finding more joy with other people now that I am able to be authentic. And I think I still have some of that in me where I still try to kind of hide. And maybe that's why my blog is so very, very open, is I'm trying to work on not hiding anymore. But I think that's giving me the most joy now. It's just the openness and the honesty that I am able to have that I don't think I've ever really understood before.
That's awesome. And it sounds like it may have been something you didn't even know was a thing or was missing. You know, the honesty has kind of come forward as you've been honest with yourself and kind of looked inside yourself and realized some things. So
yeah, really cool. I would agree 100%.
Can I just say too? Oh, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Not to like dictate what brings Jen joy, but what should bring her joy is that she has the best eye makeup out of anyone in the congregation. And literally everyone would say the same. We're all always like, oh my gosh, how did you do your eyeliner? How did you do your eyeshadow? Jen nails it every single week.
So,
half the congregation, there was talk about her eye makeup. It's a thing.
Every week. It's phenomenal.
I mean, maybe I should do lessons on my blog, a video or something. I was looking, when I started this, I was looking at all of your makeup and thinking, I will never be there.
Stop it.
So
you have surpassed all of us on behalf of all of the women in the congregation.
Yes. You're next level. That's what I was thinking too. I'm like, you don't look like a gooey chrysalis. You look like a butterfly to me. So
no, my voice is out of that Victoria still, and there's, I guess only I see it, but I'm still super in the chrysalis. I'm gooey.
Beautiful in all ways, inside and out. And You mentioned your voice. You mentioned to me when we were at the church that you were having surgery on your voice or something with your voice. Did that happen?
So the surgery is very risky. It's not for me. I am trying to get myself in touch with a vocal coach so that I can learn how to control my range better. So hopefully that happens. I am on a waiting list and I'm expecting a call any day. So we'll see.
It sounds great how it is though. Anyway,
Yeah, that's exciting though. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With my voice, this can be cut later if you want. It's just a tangent. I was at work the other day doing some work outside of my regular work. I worked with the youth, and there was another provider there with her youth. And they were like 9-year-old girls. And when I walked in, they were like, "Oh, you're so pretty. What's your name? I've never met you before." And then I said, "Oh, I'm just another respite provider." And they looked from admiration of how pretty I was to confused. And then they're like switching back and forth, using he, him pronouns, and then correcting themselves and saying things like, "Well, I can tell you're a girl because you have long hair and beautiful eyelashes." Except they didn't say, "I can tell you're a girl." They said, "I can tell he's a girl because he has." It was just so heartwarming and sweet and painful all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it was
really sweet that they're trying, but you're like, oh, I'm sure that's something that we don't have to experience. And so I can totally see why you are looking for a voice coach. But yeah, like you said, there's so many different people and so many different levels of transition and just so many, like speaking on the closeted, I have friends who are, like bisexual maybe, or this or that, and they don't come out, excuse me, because they're happily married to a man. And so, and to them, it doesn't feel like they're any less of an ally. They just don't they don't feel like they need to come out. And I do think it's important to remember that their sexuality is just as valid, and that sexuality in general is just such a spectrum. So this next question is about allyship and ways that we can improve on being allies and how to help in our efforts to help our trans siblings feel more at home and at ease. Do you have any advice for that? Or you did mention the Trevor Project, which is a great resource.
Yeah, Trevor Project is a great resource. What I would say first and foremost is I am not every trans person. Our experiences vary greatly. So I can only speak from my experience as being a trans woman. But I can give a little bit of things that I have found helpful. In fact, oddly enough, I just put this on my Facebook recently. Because I get asked this a lot. I think something that I didn't talk about that I wasn't going to talk about maybe is important is don't ever out somebody. If somebody comes to you and they tell you that they are trans, you need to find out where they are out so you can help them. You do not want to go to a family event and out them there, or maybe if they're going to church with you and they're dressed, maybe they're trans femme and they come dressed in a tie, and you don't want to you want to check with them on what pronouns to use probably. Because it may not be safe for them. It may make them feel uncomfortable. Like we said, you don't know where anybody is in their journey or where they are in their transition. I was fortunate enough to have Community of Christ to come out and be open with, and it was amazing. Everyone has Community of Christ. That leads me to pronouns. One of the best ways to be supportive of any trans person is to use their pronouns in their name. It is so great and validating. If you see somebody mid pupa stage and you're not sure which way they're going, it does not hurt to ask. It will not offend us. We feel happy that we are seen and cared for enough that you cared to ask. And if you do slip up, because a lot of people in my life knew me as Ben for 40 years, and now I'm asking them to call me Jen. So as long as you are making an effort, you don't need to apologize. That's just awkward for us, because then what do we say? Oh, it's okay. It's not okay. It's still not. But we understand, and we're going to be patient. Just correct yourself and move forward. Don't worry about apologizing. We can see you're making the effort, and that is important to us. And I think the biggest thing for me personally has been compliments, but the sincere compliments. We are learning a brand new style. I don't know much about the trans mask experience. It seems easy because you just do a t-shirt and jeans. Going from a t-shirt and jeans to the femme style, where even a t-shirt and jeans is complicated. We're not going to get fashion right every time. There's going to be some fails. So sincere compliments looks like we are dressed completely mismatched. It's not working at all. But our lipstick is a great color. Maybe you want to mention that and say, oh my gosh, that color is really bringing out your skin today. Or that color of eyeshadow makes your eyes pop. Or, hey, you've got really great eyeshadow skills. Just compliment sincerely what you can. And if there's absolutely nothing, because they are day one and they don't know what they're doing at all, you can just tell them how much you love to see their smile and how happy they look. Something sincere, because that is our roadmap to success. If you are giving insincere compliments, we may get stuck in some fashion or faux pas, and it could set us back a lot. So sincere compliments, and the compliments are important because we are on shaky ground at best. We are not feeling confident. We love the confidence that it brings when we know people will see us, and that we are not, I guess, as monstrous as we feel.
I think that's so important because I think a lot of people are afraid to mention anything about the transition, so I think that's really good for people to know that it's okay. It's okay to compliment the things that they see that are going well. And anyway, I've seen that in people, like, just be afraid to mention anything about anything having to do with the transition. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's important.
Yeah, it turns out slow motion shape changing is hard. There's a lot of direction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow, what great advice.
How can a person let go of judgment of others and worry about family disapproval?
Well, the way I understand that question right now, you can't do both. You cannot let go of judgment of others. Oh, our judgment of others. Let me look at it that way. So I just try to approach everything with the assumption that everyone is doing the best that they can with the knowledge they have and the experiences they have been through. And with that mindset, it is easier for me to have grace for people when they are ignorant about something that may hurt me. As far as worrying about family disapproval, I think that's something I'm still working on. I do have some family that has not talked to me since I came out. I also have some family that have been full bore supportive. And I have some family that's right in the middle who probably wish I wouldn't be transitioning. They don't understand it, but they are still keeping peace and doing great at that. At the end of the day, though, I need to realize that I have a responsibility to myself and my peace before that of people in my life that may not have my best interest in mind. That's my responsibility to have my interest in mind. And I don't need, I can decide what level of involvement people have in my life. And there are people that I love dearly that I still want in my life. And when we get together, we just seem to have circular arguments about the trans agenda or my liberal work that has shifted my brain or any of these other things. And I just need to limit my exposure with them. That doesn't mean I have to cut them out, but it means they may not play as big a role in my life as they once did. I don't know if I answered the question because I'm not sure I understood the question, but long story short, there are people that love me, and I need to find them. I need to focus on them because they are the ones that need to matter to me the most.
Absolutely.
I love that. Sorry, Ash, you can, if you have something, but my husband is reading a book right now, and I wish I remembered the name of it, but it talks about our inner circles and how there are very few people. I think it said like there are like 4 or 5 people in your life that you should care what their perspective is or what their opinion is. And he said and then everybody else outside of that small circle, you can respect them and love them and listen to them, but you don't need to take their opinion to heart, you know? And the 4 or 5 people, you may want to listen to their opinion and be like, okay, do I agree with them? Maybe, maybe not, but I'm going to think about it, you know? And anyone outside of those few people doesn't matter. Like you can just let go of all of that, you know, and it doesn't need to be part of your life. It doesn't need to affect your life in any form or any way. And I love that thought because I think we get so clouded with all the people, you know, and we want to love and we want to accept it. And of course, and I think that's so important, but that doesn't need to be integrated so heavily into the like woven into the intricacy of our own lives and take what they say so heavily, you know? So I love that. I love that, that you've kind of learned that.
Yeah, that's one less book I have to write. Someone else already did. It's great.
I'll tell you the
Still
name
write
of it
it.
when I know.
Oh, it's so true.
You can still write it from your perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if you've read my blog, you may not want me to write books because I do not write well. It's probably a pretty hard read, honestly.
Oh no, I'm so excited to
I'm
read that.
excited. I can't wait.
Yeah,
great.
and I agree with Emmy. That is so important. And I think what's hard for people is, like you said, Emmy, you would think your parents would for sure be in that core group, but for some it's not. And it doesn't mean you love them any less. It just means that you maybe slide them into that outer group, still love there, but they're maybe not the people you're going to share your deepest thoughts with or hold the highest opinion, you know, hold their opinion higher than others. Because there are, like you said, Emmy, some parents who do not understand it. And I think a lot of it is ignorance. And I think that is why your blog, Jen, is so important because people just need to know. There is so much that people do not know. There's a, oh my gosh, Maya Angelou quote that's do the best you can until you know better. And then when you know better, do better. And I think that you show so much grace, Jen, in the way that you handle yourself and in the way that you present. And you're such a loving person. And I love to see it because I know that there have probably been people who have not shown love to you. And so it means more that you are able to give grace and love in the way that you do.
I got some onions over here now. You're too kind.
I passed them over there. These next few questions, these are our last few, and these questions are for everyone. Are there any things that you would change about your religion? And if so, what would they be? You guys are solid. You're like, no.
Good. We're good.
I mean, I love talking to people. So if I could change anything, I would just like to see more people there, whether they're members or not. I just like talking to new people. So that's what I would change.
Yeah. We loved chatting with you, obviously. You and I took for a very long time. Disconnected so easily. But I when we were there, we noticed that there weren't a lot of people in the congregation at the time. But you guys had mentioned that there was a party right before that there were a ton of, you know, a bunch of people there, and it's kind of like come and go. People kind of come and go. Is that how you see it? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said earlier, one of the things I love about the church is it's here for where you are for as long as you need. And there's no pressure to become a member. If you can help or receive help from just attending one or two times, or whatever it may be. It's so welcoming. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a couple from Oregon who used to be in your congregation who was visiting, and they came and visited. And that was really cool to see that too. I'm like, wow, like if I was coming back home, I don't know if I'd go to church to visit my old members. I don't know. Maybe I'm new to our ward. So I'm not as close to them yet, but that was really cool to see that they came to visit, and we're so excited to see the rest of the congregation.
Yeah.
I think one thing about Community of Christ, and Jason kind of said this at the very beginning, but there's no such thing as correlation, which means that because we are a global church, the church looks very, very different in other places. And I wish that we in America got to experience that a little bit more. We definitely see that diversity at our World Conference, but in the Salt Lake congregation, we're pretty white. We have a very like Utah way of doing things. And sometimes I wish that we could experience that global part of our faith community a little bit more. Because I mean, there's congregations that dance in church and sing wildly different music and just do all sorts of things that are culturally relevant to them. And that doesn't always spill over into the US church, which I think is sometimes sad. So I'd like to see a little more diversity in our worship.
That's cool. And speaking of music and hymns, my husband and I we're so interested and surprised at and just thought it was so cool that the hymns, a lot of the hymns are the same songs as the LDS hymns, but different words, which was so cool. And we really enjoyed that because it was very familiar to us. So we could still sing along, but it was different. And it was really nice to kind of reflect on the words. It actually made us stop and really listen to the words, maybe for the first time, even though we knew the hymns front and back, in the other words. So that was really cool. That was surprising and cool. Mm-hmm. And I have your hymn book in my front room
it's on display, guys.
Stand. Yeah. So I always hope people will look at it, and my husband actually
sit over here.
Yeah.
Well, there are some differences in our hymn books. Ours is a little bit newer and has more songs, but it also has the guitar chords, which is really nice. It's helpful, especially if you're camping or things like that. I know inside church buildings with the LDS Handbook of Instruction, guitars are a big no-no. We're kind of taking that the opposite direction. We've been exploring playing ukuleles and guitars at church, and we've been having a lot of fun with that. The words in the hymns are different as well. We do adjust the words of the hymns to match our theology, and so you will find it to be more open and inclusive, a little less onward Christian soldiers off to war, and a little more Amazing Grace. In our church, we do want peace for the world, and we want people to feel included, and that's what you'll see there. With some of the holidays, we have people that actually come the week of Martin Luther King's birthday in Utah, because we sing some of the soulful songs, and some of the Black National Anthem, and some of the other spirituals, the Negro spiritual songs, and we definitely have a lot of room for improvement there, but we definitely give it a good try. And I do hope we can live up to the huge potential that is our hymn book.
That's awesome. We had a New Year's Eve party and with a bunch of neighbors and friends, and my husband used it as he may have asked you, Jason, for advice or information, but of which hymns were which, I think. And so he asked one of our anyway, he made it like a game. He was like, "Can you listen to this hymn and look at the words?" And they didn't match. And anyway, he thought it was really cool. And everyone was like, it was like a whole thing. So cool. So
back in the 1800s, that's what they did. They had these tunes, but then they had different words that were written in about the same meter. And so oftentimes they would sing those words to different tunes and give it different meanings. one of the interesting things that we do have in common with the LDS hymn book is we do have the hymn, The Spirit of God, and it is an anthem in our faith community as well. We sing it every World Conference. It's one of the highlights of the conference. There is a verse, though, that's been added that talks about peace and the child laying down with the lion and a lamb. And we have a professional organist that rocks it on the big pipe organs at our conference center or at our temple. And we still need a little bit more soul.
That's awesome. We've wanted to find some churches that have that, and we haven't really found any yet, have we? Most of our churches have been chanting. We're chanting.
Yeah, I think you said the Krishna in Cottonwood has dancing. The Krishna temple in Cottonwood.
That's true. Yeah.
I want to go do that. I will look like a fool, but it's okay. I'm fine with that.
It was fun. Okay. If you could tell LDS members one thing, what would it be?
This one feels loaded. I'll let you go for it. You look great up.
Well, I mean, I guess I was going to ask, is this like a happy LDS person who is fine with their religion, who has no qualms or beef? Or is it someone who's a little bit on the fringes? Because I think I don't know, whatever would be different. But if it's somebody on the fringes, I would just say to not let a church dictate your spirituality and your relationship with God. Even if churches claim to have the absolute authority, like, you don't have to believe that. And it doesn't make you a bad person. And it doesn't mean that you don't believe in God. You can take your spirituality into your own hands. And I guess I would probably say that to an active, faithful, non-questioning member as well. Yeah, don't let the man control you. You can be in charge of your own spirituality.
Obviously, we freaking love that. Can I say freaking on here? I said it in place of something else. So that is amazing. I love that.
That's part of why we're doing this podcast, because we feel like, especially more traditional members, it's almost taboo to look outside of your own traditions and culture and beliefs. And so we're really hoping to help people to kind of reach outside of themselves and look at different truths and different goodness and different lights, to add to their own lights and to add to their own goodness. And so that's really important to us, I feel like. And we have, honestly, as I have looked into other churches and researched and talked to beautiful people like yourselves, I have really strengthened my connection with God and my own spirituality. And actually within my own church, which was really, really surprising to me. I thought maybe I would be more like, oh, I want to join this church. But, and it's not because I feel like other churches are wrong or other churches are different or weird or that we're better or anything like that. It's just that my connection with my own spirituality has been strengthened because I have taken so much goodness from other churches and added them to my own. And so I just feel a little bit more complete and whole as a person and individually. So it's just been such a beautiful experience. So anyway, thank you for sharing that, Brittany. And then Jen, you had something. Or Jason.
Jason.
Go ahead.
I know someone who was forced out of the closet by their young women's leaders and had a pretty interesting response to that. I talked about it with the young women's leaders and the bishop. I actually met with them and talked with them because they literally were teaching in their young women's group that they wanted to love these people back into the church. And I had to kind of give some context to what that love really means. The way the love and the attention that these folks were trying to do was actually hurting this particular person. And so I talked with them to give them self-awareness. Sometimes love may be the answer to everything, but if your love is coming from a position of bringing them back into the church and back into a place that isn't necessarily good for them and healthy for them or authentic for them, that it's a better to show love by giving people space and letting them choose if they want to come back and come back in the right time. And I know we're not perfect with our love either, but we do try to help people on their spiritual journey and not proselyte to them, especially if that proselyting is a message that would hurt. And so I did suggest that they take a step back, and they did, and it helped.
Yeah, that's so needed. I took a step back from my religion for a few months, and it was the best thing I could have ever done. And I took the time to research and talk to friends and hear people's experience that would be considered anti-Mormon, but are just like their testimonies. You know, we all have a testimony of something. And I remember I told my bishop when I came back, hey, you should recommend people take a break for a few months. And he just looked at me like I was crazy. But I said I was pretty good friends with them at that time. I mean, I'm still, but we were pretty close. So I was like, hey, you should try this. And I think it could be kind of like a mini Rumspringa, which is an Amish tradition. Like, go out and see what the world is, and then if you want to come back, great. If you don't, great. That's how I view it anyway, because I don't think people should stay in Mormonism if they're not feeling good in it. So, and the same with every religion, you know, you have to, that's another goal with our podcast is, you know, maybe guiding people to what religions are here in Utah that they didn't know about. And like the qualities that each religion has. And so that's been very eye-opening for me through this journey, but also taking that step back really made me, first of all, see how it feels to be inactive or out of the church in some form. And it's very interesting because there was so much connection and truth gained during that time that some members would have thought I was like maybe falling away or, you know, and it was the complete opposite. And same with this. I haven't been to our church in a while because I'm going to a lot of different churches, and every week I'm gaining some type of different brand of spirituality, and members of my church would never know it. And that's all right. They don't have to, I guess. But I think it's important to look at people who are inactive. I'm doing air quotes for those who aren't watching this, and recognize that they're not inactive from their spirit. They might not be, you know, going to your building of worship, but they are not inactive in their spirituality. And or maybe they are, but that's not something that we should judge or think that we understand between each individual.
And I think I like that your church has kind of gotten away from the church is true kind of rhetoric, or I don't know what you'd call it, but because I think like Ashley said, we're trying to help people see what else is here in Utah and realize that it's not the only thing and the only one, and maybe there is something that fits them better, you know, and something that they connect with more. So that's important to us as well.
Jen, what was your, if there was something you could change, or sorry, if you could tell an LDS member?
So this is intended with very much love. The LDS Church does not have the monopoly on peace or joy. There's so much joy and so much peace outside of the church. If you are feeling peace and joy in the church, great. Keep that up. But please do not pity those that are left, because there's nothing to pity. And if you are scared of losing peace and joy because you're on the fringes right now, there's nothing to be afraid of.
I think Brittany kind of mentioned this a little bit from being a young girl in the church as well. But I think, like, for me as a young girl in the church, I always looked at people that were not LDS and thought, oh, like, they can't really be a good person even. And that sounds a little extreme, and that may not have been exactly my thought, but it is kind of, I think that is something in our church, that we do look at people that are not part of this particular faith, and we think, well, they don't have what we have because we have all of this peace and we have all of this goodness or whatever, and we think, how can they live life, and how can they, you know, and they need this, they need, you know, which we are so missionary driven, and I think that can be challenging, and that can be can just isn't very Christ-like. And I think that it's changing. I think that's changing. And I think we've made progress in that area, but it's true. I think we don't have a monopoly on peace and happiness. And, we can find peace and happiness wherever we find peace and happiness. And I found a lot of peace and happiness in the Krishna temple and the Islamic community and the community of Christ and the Methodist church and, and in the mountains and playing with my kids. And, it's not a one size fits all thing in my mind. So I love the book. And people, every time I mention this podcast to people, they often mention, "Oh, have you read Restoration by Patrick Mason?" And it is so great at explaining, that it's just one piece of the world that we are part of, that we're cultivating. And there's so many other parts of the garden that need to be cultivated and and are being cultivated we're just one little tiny part of it. So
yeah, we're cultivating the onion part.
Yeah,
All our tears shed here tonight. Okay. I've gotten misty a few times. I've just hit it well. This is why I'm so far back. So just be like, so this is our last question.
He's very, it's you guys.
It is. It's you guys.
We do. I mean, we cry a lot, but
I do cry a lot. This is the last question, pretty much, and then just the end after this. But in your opinion, what does the world need to spend more time doing?
Are you guys ready to solve the problems with worlds? Let's solve it right here.
We're solving it right here.
This is such a cool question from someone.
I love it.
Anyway,
eat more ice cream. Oh.
I think it's pretty simple, just figuring out how to love each other. Not to that sounds really cheesy, but I just think so many of our differences and so much of our diversity gets in the way. And if we can just find common ground and love each other, maybe not love all things about all people, but if we can just learn to love each other, I think a lot of problems would be solved.
Amen.
Jinx. Yeah. Do you guys have anything else to add?
I think choosing people over systems goes really well with loving.
Oh, I love that. Yes, absolutely.
Well, I think there is a place in this world for healthy boundaries. We have to let people have healthy boundaries. We also need to have boundaries ourselves, and we need to respect other people's boundaries and understand them.
Amen. To all three. Perfect combination too. You guys all compliment each other so well.
So very strongly, love is the answer. Always, almost always, love is the answer. Like, I talk about love a lot at church, and I think people are really tired of me just talking about love. But that's got that's it. That's Jesus' first and second great commandment: love.
Yeah, it's pretty simple.
Your neighbor.
And yeah, we get in our own way.
Yeah. Okay. So somebody specifically, two people asked, one person lived in Gilbert, Arizona, and one person lived in Colorado. And they said, so we're just wondering overall, is there a way to find congregations of the community of Christ in other cities and other states? And where do you meet here? And do you have a website? Just give us any information that people can use to attend or to listen. You have a podcast you were part of, the Zion podcast you mentioned a little bit. Just give us all the lowdown of all of that.
Yeah, so I can speak to that as well as others, but on seaofchrist.org, that's our official church website, there's a little menu currently. I always hesitate to give too specific instructions just because the internet changes and websites change. But right now, it's under the Grow tab, and there's a little icon that says Find a Church. And you can type in your zip code, you can type in your state, your providence, your city, and our congregations will come up. There's also a fair amount of congregations that do online ministries. So the Salt Lake congregation, we are a hybrid congregation, so you can Zoom into us every week. There's some congregations that are really, at this point, only on Zoom. So there's also a little tab that says something about finding an online ministry as well. And yeah, Project Zion podcast is Community of Christ podcast. And there's all sorts of history episodes, there's faith transition episodes, there's theology, scripture, there's all sorts of stuff on there. The Salt Lake congregation, we meet every week at 10 o'clock, and that's our Sunday school hour. And then we have worship at 11. We also have a congregation in Ogden that meets on the first and third Sunday of the month, and I believe they also meet at 10. And then we also have a little group that meets in Provo at St. Mary's Episcopal Church, and they meet every week at 3:30, and that's called our house church, even though they meet in a church now. But yeah, they're a little group in Provo. So yeah, but seaofchrist.org has all that information too.
And so also there is a small group in St. George. Oftentimes they meet at a coffee shop and just have talks on Sunday morning. Nancy Ross is the leader down there, and many people who listen to your podcast will know her from some of the historical, social groups and feminist groups.
Oh wow,
Very cool.
so cool.
One of our listeners told me there was a Provo one, and she was excited to go attend. So anyway,
Yeah,
cool.
we will
I didn't-
definitely be attending again as well. And you guys all signed that email, which stated that you'd be my best friends. So that is in writing.
Okay, but remember when you showed up at the congregation and I realized that you were the nuanced Mormon, I was like, whoa, we have a celebrity here.
Oh my gosh, you're so kind.
It's
You're way too kind.
fangirling over you.
Oh my gosh, you are so nice. It's happened like 3 times, and every time I'm like, me?
Whatever. Every time I go with her anywhere, people recognize us every single time,
No.
except for churches. I guess not at churches because they're not LDS.
No, you got yours. That is so nice of you, though. No, Emmy, it's not true. But it always is just like so cool to meet people who I've connected with online. It's just like I just hug them, all of them. I'm like, sorry if you're not a hugger. It's really cool to connect with people. So when you said that, I was fangirling you. I was like, female pastor? It really, that was a huge boost of confidence. I'm like, man, I might be on the right path now that I know this awesome chick follows me. So that was so cool. It just was such a great experience. And I will say, and I want our listeners to know that this is a congregation that you can go to where you will not feel like they're trying to convert you or baptize you. Like we've all said, it's so welcoming. And like, I know that I'll pop in there from time to time and that it won't feel that way. And that's no shade on churches that are trying to convert. I have a guy trying to convert me that we visited, and I appreciate it. But I also, it's just comforting to know he is so cute. He's so nice. They're the nicest. But my point is, it is so comforting to know that we can come. Anyone can come and feel welcomed. They know, and not ever come back again, or come back in a month or a week. It's just such a warm and inviting atmosphere.
And we would have been back a long time ago. We just have all these churches that we're attending right now. And
Just a few.
this is the last, well, no, this is the second to last of our,
Season one.
sorry, this will be the last of our season 1 episode. And then we're going to take it slower for season 2. So we're hoping to come back to yours.
Yeah. We need to come when the band is playing too. So
Yeah.
it's epic.
This has just been so great. I knew it would take longer with all of us and with so many questions, but is there anything quickly that you want to add?
I would just say a repeat of what I kind of already said, and don't let anyone else dictate your spirituality. It's yours and yours alone, and it's good and it's enough.
Beautiful.
Perfect note to end on.
Yes.
Cue
Thank
music.
you so much, all of you.
Being there.
It's been so enlightening, and we really just, every time we've talked to you, we've learned so much, and we've just feel like there's a place for everyone, and you guys have kind of helped us to see that. And we definitely want to come back to be supported, because we really felt like that was like a support group. And it was so beautiful and so amazing that it was so versatile, and that you were able to kind of move and transition to something different, even though it wasn't planned. And we felt so at home and so comfortable. So thank you so much for providing that environment, and providing that environment for your whole congregation, and for anyone that's just in need of something, of something different and somewhere safe to land. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Thank you so much for listening. This is the end of season 1. We will be back in a few weeks for season 2, and we have some great things in store, including
Pastor Jeff from the YouTube channel Hello Saints,
Kurt Frankum from Leading Saints and a discussion on his soon-to-be-released book,
Michelle Pepper from Edge of Inside,
a Christian pagan witch who would rather be kept anonymous,
Patrick Mason, author of the book Restored,
my good friend Tara Fennell, who will share her experience growing up in the church as a Black woman adopted into a white family here in Utah, and what led her to atheism.
My cute friend Christy Lawson, a legally blind woman that grew up in Utah as a Lutheran, and her experience navigating growing up here as a non-Mormon. She has been vital in helping me to learn how to be more accepting and loving unconditionally outside of my own religion.
2 amazing women that have found spirituality within themselves.
Kelly Clark, a woman that grew up in the South, being raised in an extreme religious household, and the impact moving forward on her faith journey.
A friend from the Native American community and their experience growing up on a reservation.
Ankar and Bryn Ajmani, a mixed faith couple in Utah that had their wedding in a Christian church as well as a Hindu temple. We are so excited for this next season. In the first season, we love the foundation of focus on religions here in Utah. This season will be more focused on the individual and their unique experiences in their faith and what brought them to it. We are going to get into the good, the bad, the raw, the messy, and the wonderful facets of each person's unique spiritual journey.